You already notice far more than you realize. You just haven't learned to interpret the signs yet, because every person leaves a trail of evidence, and Nietzsche's 18 insights will show you exactly how to spot those clues and what they really mean. This is the skill no one ever teaches you, but once you learn it, you'll never look at people the same way again. Understand this. This video isn't just a list of superficial tricks or quick tips. It's a deep, structured exploration divided into 3 powerful sections, each building on the last. If you skip ahead or skim through, you'll miss the depth that makes this work on a level most never reach. Stay with me, because by the time you've absorbed all 3 parts, you won't just understand the people around you. You'll see yourself with a clarity you never imagined possible. From early childhood, you were conditioned to trust what people say. Words became your default currency. But Nietzsche cautioned us, don't be misled by language, because people rarely speak from pure truth. They speak from fear, from ego, from survival instincts. The outer layer of someone's personality isn't who they are. It's the shield they built to navigate the world. The person who seems unfailingly kind may not be kind at all. They could be terrified of being rejected. The one who looks invincible may be crumbling inside, desperate that no one will notice. What makes humans so deceptive is this. Most of them don't even realize they're doing it. People are actors in a play they didn't choose. Their smiles, their opinions, their reactions, all shaped by what once kept them safe. This is why most people aren't deliberately hiding from you. They're hiding from themselves. Nietzsche once wrote, "Every deep spirit needs a mask." He didn't mean that as an insult. He meant it as a crucial reminder. Never confuse the mask with the person wearing it. People reveal the truth in small ways. Here's what no one ever explains. People constantly leak the truth, but not in their words. You'll find it in the tiny cracks, the moment they avert their gaze, the laugh that lingers too long, the sudden subject change when a topic gets too raw. Nietzsche's first psychological truth is this: everyone builds a mask to survive, not because they're fake, but because they're afraid. To function in society, people construct a version of themselves they hope others will accept. But no mask is flawless. They always slip, and the first clue is tension. Watch carefully for what makes someone uneasy. That's often the doorway to who they really are underneath. 2. What someone hates shows what they hide. One of Nietzsche's most piercing observations was this: what someone criticizes in others often reflects what they can't face in themselves. This is projection in its purest form. If a person constantly ridicules arrogance, chances are they're struggling with their own fragile sense of worth. If someone is obsessed with pointing out dishonesty, they're probably concealing a truth they haven't admitted. We despise in others what we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. So if you want to read someone accurately, don't only pay attention to what they praise. Look closely at what they condemn and why. 3. Silence speaks louder than speech. Nietzsche didn't think truth emerges through endless talking. He actually believed language was the herd's way of avoiding reality. When someone pauses before answering, when they deflect certain questions, when they give short, rehearsed statements about deep subjects, that silence is more revealing than any sentence. A person who avoids vulnerability isn't hiding nothing. They're showing you exactly what they fear the most. 4. Excessive virtue masks concealed vanity. Be cautious around people who loudly advertise their morality. The ones constantly correcting others, always preaching, always displaying their virtue for everyone to see. Nietzsche called this phenomenon the will to power in disguise. Sometimes morality is simply a cover for superiority. The louder the performance of virtue, the more likely there's something hidden behind it. True goodness doesn't need to be applauded. It doesn't need to be announced. It simply exists. 5. People lie to themselves first. This truth will change how you see everyone. The lies you hear, "I'm fine," "I'm over it," "I don't care," aren't crafted to manipulate you. They're lies that have been repeated so often, the person believes them completely. Nietzsche understood self-deception not as evil, but as a coping mechanism. It's a defense to stay functional in a painful world. So when you notice that someone's story doesn't quite add up, don't assume they're trying to deceive you. Realize they've been lying to themselves for much longer. And that's what makes reading them possible. Because inconsistencies are confessions in disguise. 6. Superiority hides inferiority. This is pure Nietzsche. Any display of superiority is often overcompensation. If someone constantly lists their achievements, they likely fear they'll never be good enough. If someone routinely puts others down, they're probably terrified of being insignificant. Genuine confidence doesn't compare or compete, it just is. So when you meet someone desperate to dominate or impress, look past the performance. Behind that throne, you'll almost always find a frightened child in a grown body. Before we go further, remember this. Learning to see through people is not about labeling or condemning them. It's about understanding what drives them. When someone interrupts every conversation, you'll realize it's not just arrogance, it's a fear of being invisible. When someone obsessively posts about happiness, it may be a silent plea for help. When someone avoids eye contact and says, "I'm fine," you learn to trust their body more than their words. Use these insights not to manipulate but to cultivate compassion. Because the clearer you see someone, the less likely you are to hate them. That was Nietzsche's hidden message. He didn't want you to pierce people's masks to control them. He wanted you to stop being fooled and start connecting. If you've ever looked at a person and felt you were only seeing the surface, if you've wished you could decode the truth beneath their presentation, you're not alone. Leave a comment below about the moments when people revealed themselves without saying a word. And if this video has shifted the way you look at others, subscribe. There's more coming, and you'll want to watch as the rest of Nietzsche's psychological truths unfold. 7. Most actions are driven by fear. Let's start here because it's more universal than you think. Ask yourself, why does someone over-explain everything? Why do they dominate every conversation or vanish when it matters? Why do they say yes when they mean no? Fear. Fear of abandonment. Fear of humiliation. Fear of failure. Fear of losing love or respect. Nietzsche knew that people rarely act from pure desire. They act because they are terrified of loss. So when you're trying to understand someone, don't ask what they say they want. Ask, what are they afraid of losing? That's where the real story begins. 8. Criticism is a mirror. Whenever you hear someone constantly critique or ridicule others, pay close attention. When a man mocks people for being emotional, it's likely because he's afraid of his own feelings. When a woman belittles others about their looks, she's probably at war with her own reflection. Nietzsche believed judgment almost never belongs to the target, it belongs to the speaker. So the next time you hear repeated criticisms, don't get distracted by the surface. Trace the judgment back to its origin. What part of themselves are they trying to reject? Projection isn't only a defense mechanism, it's a confession. If you know how to listen, it tells you exactly where someone's pain is hiding. 9. Guilt disguises itself as confidence. You've probably encountered someone who seems completely sure of themselves, always composed, always in control. But if you look closer, you'll see the subtle signs. The jaw that tightens under pressure, the over-preparation, the defensiveness when questioned. Nietzsche observed this everywhere, in leaders, teachers, public figures, people who performed certainty because they were terrified of being exposed. He saw that behind chronic confidence often hides guilt. Guilt about past mistakes. Guilt about parts of themselves they refuse to acknowledge. Guilt they've never forgiven. So the next time you feel intimidated by someone's unshakable demeanor, pause. Instead of shrinking, get curious. Ask yourself, what are they working so hard to prove wrong? Remember, real peace doesn't need an audience. It doesn't announce itself. It just is. 10. Exaggeration reveals insecurity. This one is subtle but impossible to ignore once you learn to see it. When someone constantly declares, "I don't care what anyone thinks," they almost always care deeply. When a person insists, "I'm always happy," it's usually because they're fighting sadness they don't want to admit. Exaggeration is the ego's attempt to drown out doubt. Nietzsche believed that extremism anywhere signals imbalance. So when someone's statements feel too absolute, don't focus on the content. Look underneath it. Ask, what insecurity are they trying to silence by shouting? Because exaggeration isn't confidence, it's volume turned up to mask fear. 11. The desire for control hides inner chaos. Almost everyone wants some degree of control over their life, but some people crave it so intensely that it becomes an obsession. Nietzsche saw this for what it really is, a desperate attempt to manage inner disorder by clamping down on the outside world. If someone micromanages every detail, they can't tolerate change. If they dominate people just to feel stable, it's rarely because they're strong. It's because something inside them feels like it could unravel at any moment. Instead of fearing controlling people, learn to see them accurately, as individuals terrified that if they ever loosen their grip, everything will collapse. The stricter the outer shell, the more fragile the core. 12. Loud performance conceals emptiness. This may be Nietzsche's most haunting observation, and it feels more relevant now than ever. Look at the endless displays on social media, the perfect photos, the constant updates, the never-ending broadcasts of curated life. It doesn't come from strength, it comes from desperation. People who know themselves don't need an audience to feel real. When someone's life feels like a nonstop performance, remember, it's not a show of power, it's a silent plea to be seen and loved. 13. No one speaks from pure logic, they speak from pain. You might think people's opinions are carefully reasoned, that they choose their beliefs based on evidence. Nietzsche disagreed. He argued that behind every logical argument, there's an unhealed wound. Someone might say, love doesn't exist, it's just chemicals. But if you listen closely, you'll hear they're not sharing a fact. They're protecting a scar. Most of what people call logic is really a defense, a shield built to keep old hurts from reopening. So the next time you want to understand someone's worldview, don't just ask what they believe. Ask, what hurt them so deeply they needed this belief to survive? When you look past their words, you stop reacting to their defenses, and you start seeing the human behind them. 14. Reactions to weakness reveal true strength. If you want to know someone's character, don't observe how they treat the powerful. Watch how they treat the vulnerable. Nietzsche taught that genuine strength isn't proven through dominance. It shows up as restraint. If a person mocks others' vulnerability, it's because they fear their own. If they punish mistakes harshly, it's likely because they were never allowed to make any themselves. But the person who can witness weakness without judgment, who can sit with another's pain without needing to fix or flee, that's the person who has ended the war inside. They no longer have anything to prove because they've already reconciled with themselves. If you want to see someone clearly, give them a moment where compassion is possible. Their choice in that moment shows you who they really are. 15. When someone fears being forgotten, they crave attention. Have you met someone who always has to be the center of the story? Every room they enter, every word they speak, seems to say, "Notice me." At first it looks like confidence, but Nietzsche saw the truth beneath it. It's often the fear of disappearing, the fear of living and dying without mattering. So they create noise, not because they love the spotlight, but because they can't bear the silence. The child who was ignored becomes the adult who overcompensates, demanding love through drama, performance, or chaos. When you meet someone who's too much, ask yourself, what are they afraid will happen if they're not enough? Sometimes attention isn't vanity, it's a cry. 16. Attack often hides envy. This may be the hardest truth to accept. People don't always attack out of hatred. They attack because they admire something they feel they can never embody. Criticism is easier than self-acknowledgement. So when someone mocks confidence, success, or freedom, understand, they're not just being cruel, they're protecting their own sense of loss. Envy is just desire with a mask. When you see this in others, you stop being rattled by petty hate. When you see it in yourself, you set yourself free.